Hey, Real Green Ninja here. The video you're about to watch is a supplement to the existing tutorials and help videos already available on the Real Green website. I do take a more casual approach because I'm presenting this information as I would if you called in, although I may have a little fun with it. This video is based upon the information I, as a Real Green technician, would provide using my experience on the help desk. This video was created on my own time to assist with areas of the software that may be waiting for an official help video or tutorial. At the beginning of the training video, I will have the version of the Service Assistant the video was made with. I will also try to be as accurate as possible, but be aware, as Service Assistant updates are released, things may change. I'm using the name Real Green Ninja as not to stand out from the other amazing technicians that I work with. I hope the information in this video helps you, so grab a cup of coffee, and I hope you learn something new. Hey, Real Green Ninja here. Today we're going to do a crash course on the call log, so let's begin. The first thing I want to talk about is I want to talk about some of the call log parameters that are set up under your data parameters. So we're going to go to Data, and then company parameters and call log parameters. You'll see we have outcomes. Again, I'll explain a little bit where these parameters come into play a little later on. But we have outcomes, and you'll see the outcomes can be tied to statuses, which means we also have statuses. Now you'll notice on the statuses we have a column that says resolved. We also have it where we can change the background and text color of those calls. Now the default one here means that if when I go to create a new call for someone, this is the default status that's going to show up. Again, I can always change the status on the fly if I need to. You can also add topics to the system. We're going to go ahead and add a topic here, and we're going to call it needs help, or something like that. So again, you're going to put your topics in if you have them. Now, most of the companies I talk to don't even have the topic set up, so that's okay. All right, that's an optional thing you can put in there. Now, once your parameters and everything are set up and where you want to be, then you can actually go into the call log itself. And we're going to hit this little telephone icon here, and you'll notice there's that blue with the white text. That's because that's what I have the new call color scheme set up to. The left message is green with black text. Again, that's what I have the call log parameter set up to. So again, you can change those colors around if you want. Now on the help desk, the two main colors that we see is we see blue and we see red. Blue is a normal new call that comes in. Red is an urgent call. Urgent calls are things like new customers, and they have that 30-day urgent status to begin with. Or if your system's completely down, you can't get in at all, then the receptionist will put an urgent status. Now, there are a couple other colors that we, sometimes occasionally see. I have like task, which anytime I get a training call sent from the sales department that's sent to me, I'll put it into the task status, which is orange, and so on and so forth. But again, you can control the colors of your call logs. Now, on the call log screen itself, you can look at different the calls that are assigned to different people. You can hit this little drop down and check mark which ones you want to take a look at. Once you do that, you can then manually hit the refresh button here, and it will refresh to show who has what calls. And if I come in over here and I just click that, and so it's all checked, and then hit refresh, you'll see, boom, I got a lot more calls shown on my list. So again, you can control whose calls you're looking at on this list, or by using this drop down in this list. I'm going to go ahead and put it back to just a Real Green Ninja here. Now, Real Green actually has an employee in the system called Sales. All right, they created an employee called Sales. They also created an employee called First Available Technician. They created an employee called Mobile Live Technician. And the reason why is when you call in the help desk and you talk to the receptionist, what they're going to do is they're going to find out what department this call should probably go to. All right. If it's like a mobile live call, they'll assign it to the mobile live technician employee. Now, the mobile live technicians are going to be looking at their calls as well as that mobile live technician employee. When you call for technical support for Service Assistant, they assign it to the first available technician. Again, I as a first level help desk technician, I look at first available technician as well as my name. All right. Again, Real Green Ninja for this video. But as I was saying, is you can set that up to where you want to send a call to all their salespeople. You just have them look at their names as well as the sales department calls. Okay. Now we also have additional filters under this options button. When you click this options button, you'll see we can turn filters on and turn them off. If you have a filter turned on, you can even hit this little gear here, which will take you to the details of that particular filter. What this filter is looking at calls that are due within a certain amount of time. If you have a due date and a due time on a call, for example, maybe you need to call Joe Schmo in 24 hours or something like that, or maybe you need to call Joe Schmo on July 14th at 5 p.m. or something. If you have a due date and due time, and it's less than the amount of hours that are, till current time right now, then it's going to show up. Now, you'll see you can also have calls with no due date and time as well as overdue calls. Now, on my database, and when I do call logs and stuff, when I pop in and log in for the work, I actually have this one turned off. These are pretty much the three filters that I use on the help desk. Okay, you can again choose which employees you want to look at. It's pretty much the same as this filter up here. You can also choose what statuses you want to look at. Remember those statuses I showed you, and I showed you how that resolve checkbox or list or column. If there's a checkbox in that resolve checkbox for that status, it's considered resolved. If I go into the gear here, I can set to look at all statuses. I can look at only resolved statuses, only unresolved statuses, or if I pick and choose what status I want to look at, it will then flip to custom. I normally, again, on the help desk, look at calls that are unresolved. If I ever want to look at a resolved call, then I'll go through, open up a second copy of the call log, set it for unresolved calls, and I'll explain why I do that in a little bit. But like I said, I set it for resolved calls, take a look at the ones I want to find, and then once I find it, I can go ahead and then close out the second call log and leave my original one untouched. Now, you can also look for calls that have not been viewed yet. I'll show you what that means here in a moment. You can look at calls that were entered a specific date range, or you can even look at calls that were completed in a specific date range, or calls with no completion date. And the reason for that is let's say someone called you last week, and you remember you talked to them, but you don't remember who exactly it was. You can then say, oh, I remember it was last week, so I'm going to look at calls that were created last week. Okay, or if you talk to someone and you know it was resolved, it was put in a resolved status. Again, you can look at what date the date range of when you think it was resolved, and it will help pull that call up. You can also look up calls that are due with a specific date, which is similar to this one, except for this one goes by how many hours until it's due. This one goes by the due date. Okay, you can look at calls that are not associated with a customer. So again, there might be a message that your sales department wants to send to your management department or vice versa. It might not be tied to a specific customer. And again, I'll talk about that in a little bit. In that case, again, you may want to look at calls that are not associated with a customer. If we scroll down, you'll see there's a couple more filters. You can look at customer certain statuses, whether or not they have a certain flag code. If you have topics in the system, you can also look at calls with a specific topic and so on. All right. Now you'll see there's a refresh call list every X amount of minutes. If you turn that on, what's going to happen is the system's automatically going to refresh this list based upon the filters that you have every X amount of minutes. In this case, 1 minute for mine. Now, you can manually refresh it here. All right. If you're looking at a ton of calls, you may want to increase this time because every time it does a refresh, it has to go through and pull that list. So if your call list is like 500 calls long because there's 500 unresolved calls for whatever reason, maybe you're doing a marketing campaign or something, and you have this refresh rate set at a very low time, like maybe a quarter of a second or something, or I'm sorry, quarter of a minute, it's going to be constantly refreshing. You're never going to see the calls because it's going to try to refresh. It's going to try to populate the list. It doesn't have time to populate the list. It's going to before it's time to refresh again. So again, you may want to play around with the refresh settings. Most companies I know probably have theirs set about 15 minutes or so. Because I work at a help desk and we actually use this call log, by the way, just to let you know what I'm showing you here, we use this on the help desk for when you call in asking for help. Which is also why we don't have ticket numbers, because this call log doesn't create ticket numbers or service support request numbers or whatever. But as I was saying, is that when you're looking at the calls, like I said, you can control how often it refreshes. Now, on the help desk, I have mine set to about 2 minutes at most during the winter time, simply because, again, there's going to be a lot of calls for us in the winter, and I don't want it to constantly refresh. During the summertime, when we're not as busy, I have it set for about half a minute, or 0.5. And again, this is going to be in decimals, so 0.5 is half a minute. But like I said, it's up to you to decide what or how often you want this to refresh. Like I said, you don't want to go too drastic. You don't want to put 1,000 minutes or in it or whatever, or you don't want to put in like 0.01. Otherwise, you might not see the calls the way you want to. Now, you can also turn on notification options, and what notification options are is when you go into Service Assistant. If this is turned on, it will let you know if there's any outstanding calls that are waiting in your queue. It will also pop up a message whenever a new call comes in. Also, if a call has a due date and due time, it will pop up a reminder saying, hey, there's a call coming up. Do you want to dismiss it? Do you want to take it? Or do you want to cancel the alarm? All right. You can even look calls that are going to be set to other people as well. And again, this is for notifying if the other person's call is coming up due. So like I was saying, see, there's that outstanding calls because I just turned the filter on, and there's outstanding calls in the queue there. Now let's go back to options here. Okay. So again, you can control these filters. I'm going to go ahead and set this refresh let's make every 3 minutes, because I don't think it's going to, hopefully the video doesn't take forever, but we should see it at least refresh a couple times. So again, every 3 minutes, this is going to refresh. But if I ever want to double check, I can always manually refresh it by hitting that refresh button. Okay, now over here you can do a keyword search on the calls that are currently on this list. So for example, if you want to look at calls that are tied to like upset customer, you can type in upset customer, and as long as it's on this list, it will filter by that particular keyword. Okay, down here is a feature they've added probably a couple updates ago. It's not that long ago, where you can expand all rows. It's actually going to stretch out those calls, and when it stretches out those calls, you can then see what the text is that's in those calls. You can then collapse it. All right. You can also access the call log report by clicking on that. Again, this is one of those things I always tell people, play around with, do previews, see what shows up. Now, we actually look at this report a little bit on the help desk, because this report will let me pull up how many calls I've completed for the day. So I get kind of like, I give myself a target. I'm like, okay, I want to do 20 calls today. I'll actually go through and every now and then periodically check to make sure I'm on track or whatever. But again, you can do a check to see if your salespeople are resolving the calls and stuff like that. So again, you can configure it and play around. But like I said, preview it. I'm not going to go into it right now, though. All right. Now down here on details, this is where you can actually change how this call log works. Now let me see if I can move this. Let's see here without breaking anything. Oh, because again, I got stuff on my desktop. I realized that I wanted to show people. Well, let me show this one here. Let's see here. Can I move? No, can't move this window. Well, let's see here. Oh, maybe I can. There we go. Okay, there we go. Move down a little bit. So again, if I set detail, you see there's details, which is what I have now. Summary by employees or summary by call status. And we're gonna go ahead and bump this back up here. There we go. All right, so if I do details, again, this is what I'm currently looking at. If I click on summary by employee, you'll see it's going to change the view of the list. If I go through and I check all the employees, like I did earlier, hit refresh, again, you'll see it shows me the different employees, and I can go through and see what those particular employees' calls are. Okay. Now, again, you can also do it by call status. It's the bottom option there, and you'll see new collection call, new call, left message, and so on and so forth. And I'm going to go ahead and put this back to just to me. There we go. Okay, so like I said, you can change the view of that list, and it will tell you here the total number of calls that are on that list here. And I'm going to go ahead and hit refresh, and now we're back to 2. Now, another cool feature down here on the bottom, if you select a call, okay, whether or not you open it up or whatever, you'll see this view call details or customer details. When you click on that, it will actually open up the customer screen here. So I can pull it up and look at information, look at what the remit balance is, and so on and so forth. So again, you can click on that. Also, on the help desk, this is one thing I do sometimes. I'll actually go into the contact tab, and again, we'll talk about this in a little bit, and I'll see if they've called about this issue before, or if who they've talked to recently or something like that. All right. So again, you can actually change the different views and how these calls look. Now you'll notice across the top here we have different topics or different headings. We have account number, name, company name, ID. This is the employee that's assigned to. It's the status when it was entered. This is if it was a due date. This is that viewed option I was talking about. If you've opened the call and looked at it, it will check mark the viewed. When it check marks the view, if you do have that filter calls that have not been viewed, this call would disappear. Okay, if the call's in resolve status, it will have a check mark here. Again, I'm not looking at any resolved calls. It'll have the customer's address, what city, state, zip, and what their current balance is. We scroll over, and then you can also see the phone number. But maybe you don't want the phone number on the far right here. I can grab that phone column. I'm holding my mouse button down, drag it over here, and I can plunk it right next to the name. So again, you can change how these columns are laid out. Again, if you're not too concerned about, what the reference number is or whatever, again, you can move it around and so on and so forth. You can really customize how these columns are set up. Now, as far as the calls themselves, you'll see the little plus button here. If you click on that, it will expand that individual call out. And again, you can do them all if you want. If you want to get into a call, you're going to double click the call right here, and it'll open up that call for you. But let's go ahead and add a new call right now. If you want to just add a new call that's not tied to a specific customer, all you have to do is hit new. It's going to open up this screen here. It will then select what employee you want to assign it to. So let's go ahead and create one assigned to me. You can select what status you want to send it to. You can also change the outcome. Again, on your parameters, you have the outcomes tied to a status. Now, if you do have your outcomes tied to a status, they don't have to be, but if you do, when you change the outcome to that, it'll change the status to whatever it's tied to. All right, we're going to go ahead and put this back to new call for right now. If you want to make it a private call where other people can't see it, you can then check mark this a private call. It's going to tell you who entered the call as well. All right. Now over here on company, this would be something like maybe I want to remind myself to call Home Depot or something. So I can say Home Depot. And if you don't have any Home Depots around you guys, Home Depot is one of those large box hardware stores, like Lowe's and actually, what was that one with the green symbol? I can't think of it now. It used to be big, but they kind of they went out of business. Home Depot. Not Ace. Okay, whatever. But again, like I was saying, and I can also put a name if there's a particular person I'm trying to reach, telephone number, and then I can also enter that due date and due time. Like I said, with the notifications, I can set it up to pop up with a message reminding me that the message or that I need to call this customer. Now, a little side tip here: I've had people ask me if there's a way to have the system remind them when to do maintenance on vehicles and stuff. When I, talk about setting up vehicles in the system to assign them to services that were performed with that vehicle. Unfortunately, no, but you could create a call log to remind you to, it's been 3 months, check the mileage and see if you need an oil change or something like that. So again, it's not technically you can't technically use it to do vehicle maintenance reminders because the software is not designed that way, but you can bend the call log to do those reminders for you. Okay, so if you enter the due date and due time, what's going to happen is when it gets close to that due date, actually let's do 9 a.m. 10. There we go. It's when it gets close to that time, it will actually pop up a message if you tell it to sound alarm. Now you can also come in here and you can change the time. So if you want to be really precise, I can go through here and say at 10:12 to call this person. Okay, or that's when it's supposed to be due. All right. If you have topics in the system, you can hit this little grid right here and select what topic you want it to be. Now, again, as with some parts of the software, you have to close and reopen the software to get the list to refresh. I'm not going to worry about doing that right now. But again, you'll see at least the one of them that was in there. And then when I'm done, I hit this little return thing, and now you'll see this call has a topic. You can also click on this link right here, and you can even add services and programs if it's tied to a customer. You can click on this and forward the call to someone else. You can print out the call, but you have to save the call first to print it out. You can also email the call. Again, you have to save the call before you can email it. You can even send a text message to an employee that's assigned to. Again, you have to have the employee's cell phone number and their employee parameters, as well as if it's tied to a customer, you can even hit this little pile of gold coins for that customer account and then go to the payment screen. Again, when we show you how to do one for customer, I'll show you how some of those buttons work. Now, down here is the date. Again, this is going to be the date and time that this particular entry to this call log was created. This is the employee that created the call log, as well as the current outcome. Again, the default I have is set for new call. This is where I'm going to put in my notes. Call, about seed spreader. Okay, so again, I can put a note in there, and then once I have all my information in, I'll hit save. Okay, now if I come over here, and let me go ahead and close that. If I come over here and refresh it, you'll see there's that new call log. You'll also notice there's no account number because, again, this call is not tied to a particular customer. If I want to resolve the call, I can open this up by double-clicking it. Again, like I mentioned before, if you double-click, it will open up the call log. Let's say I put, never mind, going to buy one. Oops. Okay. And then we can turn around, and now what's cool is I can actually hit the R key because I know in my database the first one that's set for the first outcome with the letter R is resolved. You'll notice that when I choose resolved, it will then put in a resolved date and time. When I hit save, and give it a few moments here, and then close it, refresh, you notice that call's not on there. Actually, it refreshed after I resolved it. Now, if I wanted to see that resolved call, I can come over here, click on this little gear, tell it resolve, close, refresh, and then you'll see there's that Home Depot call that I just entered and resolved. All right, but we're going to go back to our unresolved calls. There we go. Close and refresh. And there's our unresolved calls. Now, again, that's a straight call. Now, again, like I said, if someone from the sales department wanted to reach me at the help desk, what they would do is they'd create a brand new call. Again, it doesn't have to be tied to a customer, and they would assign it to me, and then all of a sudden it would pop up on my call. I would see it, and then I can respond to it or whatever. All right. Now, if you want to put a call that's assigned to a specific customer, then what you can do is on the customer screen itself, and I'm just going to grab someone here. Let's see here. Oh, Mr. and Mrs. Jack Thompson. You'll see there's a little telephone icon in the upper left-hand corner. When I click this telephone icon, I can either do a quick note or a call log. I'll talk about quick notes in a moment. When I enter call log, you'll see it's going to open up that call screen again, but this time down here, you'll notice it has their account information. Okay, so again, I'm going to assign it to myself, Realty Ninja, and again, I can select topics and stuff I want. Now, again, call customer about complaint. Okay, so again, I can put that note in there, or if the customer called me about something, or I can put in there customer called about a complaint or something, and then I can put details about the complaint if they mention any names. Again, this is a record of a communication or contact with that client. Now, again, down here you'll see there's the customer information. If I hit this little or if I hit this link right here, it will take me to that customer screen. If I come down here, you'll notice it's going to show me the account information. I can even copy the account information to the computer's clipboard, so I can paste it into something like an email to someone else. You'll see it's going to show me what services or programs they currently have on their job screen. Now, this is going to usually show what they have that's active for that current year. Okay. It also will show me what flag codes the customers have. Now, if you have a customer that's kind of a pain, you could create a flag code called pain, or or pain in the rear, or something like that. Again, if you do a flag code or something like that, please make sure you don't have it printed on invoices. Again, watch the flag code part of the parameters training or crash course on parameters or whatever, about talking about flag codes and what that's about. It will also show the balance. Now, I will let you guys know this is one piece of insider information. At Real Green, we do not actually have a flag code for troublesome customers. Okay, we have some troublesome customers, and again, I understand sometimes people get frustrated and stuff like that, but we try to work with people as best we can. But we don't actually have a flag code, so when you guys call, I don't know what the call is going to be like until you actually get it. All right, so again, as I was saying, is once you have all your information in, you're going to hit save. Now that I've saved it, again, I can forward the call. I can print out the call details. I can now email it. I can actually send text message to the assigned employee. You'll see it throws my in there. And as long as I have my telephone information and carrier stuff, I can then actually add information to this text message, send the message to my technician or employee or whatever to let them know that this call has been created or whatever. Okay, so as I was saying, this one's tied to a call. You'll see that the system refreshed it after the 3 minutes, and there's that person showing. Oh, there's that call showing up there. Again, if I want to resolve it, let me close that right there. I can go into the customer screen. I can hit R like that, and I can even put something like gave customer $25 credit. Okay, so again, you can put notes about that communication or what you've done for that customer. Okay, and then hit save, and then close. Now, there we go, close. Now, again, if I want to see or if I want to change my filters, it's under options here. Now, because I have played around with my filters, when I go to close the call log, it asks me, do I want to save current settings as default? If these are the filters you want set, the next time you come into the call log, you hit yes. If you've been playing around with the filters, or at some point you wanted to see, let me close that here real quick, or if you've been setting the filters or whatever, and you wanted to see like the resolved calls versus unresolved or whatever, then you're probably going to want to say no. So let's go ahead back in the call log here real quick, but this time we're going to minimize it. And the reason why is I want to show you something else. And again, this is similar. It's related to the call log, but it's not exactly a call. Okay. Again, if we go to a customer screen right here and you hit that telephone icon, you have an option to enter what's called a quick note. This pops up a screen right here. Again, you can type whatever you want to type in there, hit save and close. Quick notes are automatically resolved. All right. So even though I added it for that customer, if I hit refresh, it doesn't show up. All right. Now, as far as the call logs that are assigned to customers, if you ever want to see that customer's call history, you can hit the contact tab, and it's going to show you all the calls that have been entered for this customer's account. Okay, you'll also see there's a quick note button up here. It acts the same way. But down here, again, like I said, you'll see that there actually is a list of calls that are assigned to customer's account. Now, again, in the Real Green call database, for again what we use for our calls, I've seen customers in there, they have calls going back to the 90s. All right, so again, you may have to do some scrolling, or you can click on it and actually push the up and down arrows to go through them. And again, you'll notice it shows me all the notes that are on that call. Okay, you can also hit this telephone icon right here, and again, either quick note, enter call log. It's going to pop up that screen, put the information in, and so on and so forth. All right, if you want to see all notes, you can click on that, and you'll see again, it's going to show you all the calls that were created and their responding notes. All right, so again, like I said, there's a lot of really cool things. You can play around with it. It's one of those things, if you ever have any problems, of course, you can always give Real Green a call, but like I said, for the most part, the call log's fairly straightforward. Once you get the hang of it, it's actually pretty easy, and it's a great way to document information about communication with your customers, or even just a quick note about your customers, as well as being able to send calls back and forth between departments. So, 24 minutes on this video. So, and this is like the 12th or 13th time I've started the video. That's why I'm like, okay, I made a few mistakes. I'm going to just keep doing it. So, again, as always, I hope you learned something new, and you guys have yourself a wonderful day.